let's see. Who have we got here? I don't have. Oh, there we go.
Thanks, Amber.
Hi, Xavier.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Hi, Xavier.
Hey, Zavi.
Hey.
Well, there is Councilor Garcia Molina. I have 6:01 p.m. I hereby call this August 3rd meeting of council committees to order. Mr. Harris, would you call the roll of members, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Royo.
Here.
Ms. Beke.
Here.
Ms. Craig.
Here.
Ms. Diaz. Mr. Garcia Molina.
Here.
Mr. Soto.
Here.
And President Smith Waydell.
Here. I have some housekeeping items, but let's go ahead and approve the minutes. First, I'll hear a motion for the July 6th committee meeting minutes.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Council comments. Okay, hearing none. Mr. Harris.
Mr. Royo.
You're muted, Jamie.
Sorry. Aye.
Ms. Beke.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Mr. Garcia Molina.
Aye.
Mr. Soto.
Aye.
And President Smith Waydell.
Aye. Okay. Couple of housekeeping items this evening. First, I'm going to ask that we move through the majority of the agenda with all deliberate speed. Of course, just not dawdling on any items. Obviously, each item is due its regular consideration. But considering the item holding down the bottom of the agenda, I think that it's in our and the public's best interest to move to it quickly. So briefly addressing that item. So the rezoning of 250 College Avenue, I just want to address the public real quick and let them know what the standard process is. So first, this went through Planning Commission. It spent a lot of time in limbo for a couple of reasons, and now it's seeing its first public meeting with council, and it's the meeting of the Community Planning Committee. If it's moved forward from this meeting, it would typically move to the first council meeting in August. That's the second Tuesday, and then to a following meeting. At that first meeting, it is merely read into the record, and because a zoning change is an ordinance change, it would then be passed at a successive meeting, but it cannot be voted on at its first meeting. So just a brief outline there. As we come to that item, that will be under Councilor Craig's committee, but I'm going to ask for a couple of things for public comment that I hope to hold actually for the whole meeting. First and foremost, public comments I anticipate a fair number of them. They are limited to 3 minutes. Ms. Strazo, can you say hello briefly?
Yes, so I'm going to help with timing tonight. I've made these very high tech signs to let people know when they're getting down to the wire on the comments, just to keep things moving along. Again, if anyone's listening in that has called in to raise your hand, you just want to press *9, and anyone that's joined in via Zoom, just raise your hand and we will call on you, state your name, your address, and give your comments.
Thank you, Ms. Strazo. So if you're commenting, Ms. Strazo, you can look for her in the list of panelists. So she'll be signaling you 1 minute and 30 seconds. And then when your time is out, the Pennsylvania law requires me to make reasonable accommodation for all residents and taxpayers to the subdivision to speak, which requires limiting comments to some degree. So I can't have, if we have 30 comments at 5 minutes in length, the meeting is an additional 2.5 hours, and we lose a lot of people. So we're going to try to move through that as quickly as possible. Moving right along to that point, when it comes to the public comment on that item, I will read into the record the public comments that have been submitted beforehand. If you have submitted a public comment to be read into the record beforehand, we are going to ask that you refrain from public comment this evening, because you'll have had your opportunity by having your comment read into the record in full. If you have submitted a comment to be read into the record and would instead like to say your comment aloud, that is, I won't read it and you can speak it aloud when that time comes, you can go ahead and just send an email if you're on a computer to bharris@cityoflancasterpa.com. Yes, I stuck you with that one, Bernie. Sorry about that. And Bernie will let me know not to read a particular comment into the record. Okay, again, 3-minute time limit. As usual, we're going to ask you to begin with your name and the block on which you live. Now, I would like to make time for everybody to speak. I am going to admit a preference, however, for what the relevant law dictates, which is to residents and taxpayers of the given subdivision. So anybody residing within the city of Lancaster, anyone owning property within the city of Lancaster, and because of the local services tax, anybody who works within the city of Lancaster is who I'm required to provide for by law. So if we get an overwhelming amount of comments, I'm going to prefer those persons who can let me know that they have one of those 3 relationships to the city of Lancaster, as long as we're clear from the get. Finally, want to let everybody know that this is a committee meeting, and therefore there is only public comment related to specific items. So there's not public comment at the top of a given meeting. If you have a question for me about the conduct or that, you can send me an email. I'm right in front of my email at ismitwadeel@cityoflancasterpa.com, or the much simpler bharris@cityoflancasterpa.com. And he will pass it along to me, and I'll respond in real time. I've got a dual monitor set up so I can see emails coming in right over here. Again, that's bharris@cityoflancasterpa.com. Thank you, everybody, for bearing with me. We're now going to move along with the meeting. Please direct all questions about the conduct of the meeting to my or Mr. Harris's email at this time. Okay, we approved the minutes. We begin with Personnel Committee. Councilor Bakay, would you mind taking over Personnel Committee this evening?
Not a problem. Thank you, Mr. President. All right, so the Personnel Committee has come to order. We have 4 items on the agenda this evening for appointments to boards and commissions or authorities. The first of which is the appointment of Deneen Hooker, who is a nominee for appointment for the Noise Control Board. This is a term that would begin on 20 and go until 2/1/25. Amber Straza, do we have the ability to have Ms. Hooker on the call?
Yeah, I can add her in now.
Great, thank you. Welcome. All right. She's muted. I don't know if that's us or her.
Sorry, Bill.
No worries.
Should be unmuted.
Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Another Deneen. What
Yes,
a rare,
ma'am, it is.
what a rare occurrence this is. Thank you so much for joining us during the meeting this evening. And thank you for your willingness to serve on this board. If you could just briefly, in 60 seconds, elevator interview style, just tell us a little bit about yourself as a resident of Lancaster and why you're interested in serving on this board.
Sure, thank you so much. Actually, my background has been about 20 years of human resources. So it's been in the space of dealing with rules, regulations, and policies and procedures. So moved to Lancaster about a year ago and really want to get actively involved. I just felt like it's my obligation, my duty to serve and to help others. So that's one of the main reasons. There's been some things that's happened in our area right on 827 Walnut Street that I feel like that I could be a voice for the people, primarily in my area and then for the city.
That's
So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate that. And I would say that, your willingness to serve is appreciated because we have many boards, commissions, authorities, and we need people like you who are willing to step up and help out. So thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from members of this committee?
There we go. I was muted for a second. Just speaking to the incident that you're speaking to on Walnut Street, could you tell us a little bit more about how you would advocate or what in particularly brought you to mind? Because your resume is very thorough and I appreciated that, but that just sparked my interest.
I think it's been recently, we've had a few incidents, car accidents right here that I really want to be able to address. I mean, we've had some fireworks incidents too. So if nothing else, be able to pool resources. We have some very active people on the block, but just to be able to get to launch their concerns and be able to have an avenue to be able to address them and bring them to the committee and be able to serve them. So that's mainly what I want to do.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I think we're a community that really appreciates community mobilizing, and it sounds like that's in your skill set.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So with that, I would move to bring this appointment to the full council on our next meeting, which is the Tuesday, the 11th of August, if I'm not mistaken.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Easy as that. Thank you very much, Ms. Hooker. We appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
You too. Okay, so I don't have my my participant list up in front of me. Amber, do we have Lauren Edgell on the call this evening?
I don't see her unless she potentially accidentally logged in under another name.
Okay.
Lauren, if you're here, if you could just like raise your hand.
So what we have on the agenda is the appointment of Lauren Edgell to the Lancaster Higher Education Authority for a term beginning 7/28/20 and running through January 1st of 2023. And that's replacing member Cynthia Minnick. I can just say that briefly, I'm aware of Lauren's background in higher education. So to me, this appointment makes sense. Is there any other comments or questions from members of the committee?
No, I would also second that. Currently, she serves as the Director of Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning at the Harrisburg University of Science and Technology. Before that, she was Director of Online Programming from Millersville University. So I think she's definitely well-versed in this particular area. So I think she would be a great candidate.
Terrific. No dice there, Amber?
Someone named Stephanie Bradford raised their hand. Would that potentially be Lauren?
I don't think that is the case. No.
That is not.
Okay.
Thank you for your confirmation. Okay, so that's quite all right. I appreciate the discussion. And with that, I would move that we bring this to full council on Tuesday, August 8th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Number 3, we have Stephen Campbell, nominee for appointment to the Sewer Appeals Board. Of course, Mr. Campbell is staff member. That would run from 7/15/20 to 9/12 of 2025. I could barely read my chicken scratch there. And I do believe we have Mr. Campbell on. Hello, Mr. Campbell.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you this evening?
Very good, thanks. I got cut off just as you had called my name.
Quite all right. We appreciate you coming back around for us. So if you could just, again, 60 seconds or less elevator pitch or explanation in this case, could you just explain to us about the Sewer Appeals Board? And I'm assuming that you'll be the staff liaison in this case.
Well, I look forward to being able to fulfill this role, largely so that I'm much more aware and knowledgeable about the kinds of challenges that residents, property owners, developers, et cetera, have related to fulfilling the needs of our wastewater requirements. We, of course, have the consent decree that we're very, very, very aware of. We have income and cost challenges that I need us to all be aware of, but we are most importantly looking forward to ensuring that we're providing the cleanest water going back into the Conestoga and managing the cleanest water in the sewer system. So my being on this board, being the liaison for subject matter experts, as well as the council and the public, is critical as far as I'm concerned to all of DPW's success and the ability for the city to better serve the citizens of Lancaster.
Most appreciated, Mr. Campbell. Yeah, I would second that for sure. We appreciate having you as the department head of Public Works being so close to these issues that concern residents, for sure. And your commitment is appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions from the committee?
I don't think so.
Okay, fantastic. Then I would move that this be brought to full council on Tuesday, August 11th.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Thank you very much.
And lastly on our agenda, we have Rose Rapera, who's up for reappointment to the Civil Service Commission. And I don't have those dates in front of me. Amber, do we have Ms. Rapera on the call tonight? No, I'm also searching.
Councilor Bakey, I think it's, unless Mr. Harris can correct me, that she might not have been invited because this is a reappointment to the Civil Service Commission.
Actually, I had asked her to attend and had sent her the link, but she said she didn't know whether or not she'd be able to be here tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. So the Civil Service Board, obviously this is a reappointment, so she's been serving already, and we appreciate her service. This is the commission board that is in charge of reviewing our civil service appointments to our police and fire. So very important, of course. And anyone who has successfully served, I would absolutely want them to continue if they wish to do so. So we appreciate Ms. Rapera's willingness to serve and do that. Any other comments from members of the committee? Okay. Then I would make a motion that we move this to full council on Tuesday, the 11th.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And with that, Mr. President, that concludes the Personnel Committee meeting.
Thank you, Councilor Bakay. We move from there into the Public Safety Committee. Councilor Garcia Molina.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just making sure I wasn't muted. So this calls, the Public Safety Committee is called to order. There's actually only one agenda item. I believe that Patrick Hopkins will speak to it, or is the Chief President Amber or Bernie?
I see Lieutenant Umstead in the list of attendees.
Great. So Really, it's a partnership for a grant application between the city and the county. And the funding really is going to be used for personal consultant services to review, analyze, and develop departmental policies, and also look into the NIBRS system, which actually I looked into it, which is the National Incident-Based Reporting System. But if the lieutenant or someone from the department would like to speak more to it. So really, it's partnership.
Sorry, Councilor Garcia Molina.
I think the lieutenant is on to speak to this particular item now.
Hi, it's Captain Umstead. That's okay.
Oh, my apologies, Captain.
No, that's all right. As the counselor said, this is for the Bureau of Justice Assistant Grant, otherwise known as the JAG grant. Our 2020 allocation is $43,168. We did receive a proposal from the Daigle Law Group for a comprehensive analysis and review of our policy. This would be a 12 to 18 month process where they would review and restructure our entire policy and roll that out in a way that our officers can effectively carry out their law enforcement responsibilities. And we also lead towards and meet accreditation standards, which is something we are planning on doing in the near future, is hopefully becoming an accredited police department. And this would be a very important first step of that. The proposal is estimated at $30,000 to $35,000. So the remaining money from that $43,000, we would request computer equipment to purchase a new evidence storage server for our digital evidence, for video evidence. The one we have is outdated and in need of replacement. And anything that would be approximately $2,400 for that server. And then any remaining funds, we are going to request the purchase of some replacement and new laptop computers because we learned during the early stages of the pandemic when we had people working from home, we were a little shorthanded on laptops. Some of them are getting outdated and in need of replacement.
Great. I really appreciate that. The only question that I really had was, I was trying to understand the relationship between the city and the county for this particular grant.
It has to be approved by both the city and the county. I am planning on attending the commissioner's work session tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. My understanding is it's basically just a memorandum of understanding that has to be approved by both agencies for us to secure the federal funding.
Great, I appreciate it. Is there any other questions from the committee?
No.
Then with that, I'd like to make a motion to bring this resolution to full council meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. With the president, with that, I conclude Public Safety Committee.
Thank you, Councilor Garcia Molina. We move then to the Finance Committee. Councilor Bakay, you're up again.
I'm up again. Okay, hello. All right, so the Finance Committee meeting is now in order. Tonight we have one item on our agenda. It is a resolution setting a stormwater management application fee for small projects. And I believe it looks like Mr. Campbell may be speaking to that, if I would guess. Came back.
No, I don't think so.
No? Okay. I had like a 50-50 shot there.
Right, exactly.
Mr.
I think it's Patrick.
Okay, Mr. Hopkins, is that you this evening? Maybe.
Application for small projects, and I believe it looks like Mr. Campbell.
Looks like he's streaming us, so we're getting a little bit of feedback.
If I was
There we go.
Okay. I had like a 50-50 shot there. Okay, Mr. Hopkins, is that you?
Yes, I believe it is.
Okay.
Steve is off the hook for this one.
Okay. So I think you're on a little bit of a delay because
Sorry, I had to turn the sound off on my.
Excellent.
And I am not able to hear anybody.
Oh, how about now?
Mr. Hopkins?
I'll say-
Yep, okay, sorry. I've got this on two different screens, so I'm messing myself up.
Understand,
So-
you have us turned up on one and down on the other. Go
Yes.
right ahead.
Okay, so this resolution is really is more of a housekeeping item. As we were going through various fee schedules in anticipation of doing a comprehensive citywide fee analysis, Ruth Hocker noted that we did not have this particular small project fee in the list of fees that are on our omnibus fee schedule. So what this is doing is just adding what has been a longstanding fee of $30 for a small stormwater project review to the list of a number of other schedule or fees that are related to stormwater projects.
Perfect. Okay, so to clarify, this was a fee that we've already been charging. It's not a new fee, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Any other members of the committee have any questions or comments?
I have none.
Thank you. All right, from the council? You love housekeeping stuff. Thank you, Mr. Hopkins.
Well,
I would make a motion then to move this to, this is a resolution, so to our next council meeting on Tuesday, the 11th.
So moved.
In a second.
Second.
Sorry about that. If you said it, I missed it. All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm
Thank-
sorry, who was the second?
Counselor Craig was.
It could not have been Counselor Craig. It would have been,
Oh,
had
I'm
to have been, it would have to have been you.
It would
Yeah.
have been you this evening. Sorry about that.
we only have 2 of 3 members of the finance committee here tonight. So
We're down a person. It's hard to keep track.
I can step in here if you'd like me to second it.
Mr. Harris, will that be okay if I'm on record as the second on that one?
That's fine, yes.
Okay, terrific. Then thank you very much. Then that concludes the Finance Committee this evening.
Thank you, Counselor Bakay. It's much appreciated. Counselor Arroyo, Economic Development Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This calls to order the Economic Development Committee. We have one item on our agenda today, which is Council Resolution 42-2020, which is urging Congress to create the National Infrastructure Bank. I believe this was going to be introduced by Councilor Diaz, who isn't on the call. Mr. President, I'm not sure if anyone else is here to speak on the resolution at all in more detail.
I don't think so, but Mr. Harris, well, no, I don't know if Counselor Diaz is not present who would speak on it. We can either read its text in and discuss it, or we can table it to consider at the September committee meeting. Either of those would be fine by me, but you're the committee chair.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll motion just due to the fact that I want to give Councilor Diaz the opportunity to advocate on this resolution. I would motion to table this resolution to the next committee meeting that's scheduled for Tuesday, September 1st.
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you. Those are all the items, Mr. President. So with that, I'll close the Economic Development Committee.
Okay. Thank you, Counselor Arroyo. Okay, we move now to the Community Planning Committee. Counselor Craig.
Thank you, Council President. We have 2 items on the agenda tonight. First being a review of the Historical Commission recommendation for demolition and new construction at 237 to 245 West King Street. I'm not sure who's here to speak on that.
I'm adding them in now.
Thank you.
Just a second. I'm not seeing everyone that I was asked to add in.
Okay. Okay.
This is Larry Gingrich from Landis Communities. I'm turning on my video right now. Sorry about that. And there should be Yvonne Berge and there is Corey Hamilton. I will be sharing my screen and Corey will be speaking along with Yvonne Berge. I have not seen her on this screen yet.
Yeah, Yvonne was added earlier, and now I'm not seeing her. Oh, there she is. She got shot up to the top. There we go. Okay, she should be in shortly.
Yes, there they are. So I will now, if you will allow me to, I'll be happy to share my screen for Yvonne.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, Yvonne.
Good to see you all here. In addition to Larry Gingrich, we have Corey Hamilton from our finance team. Larry's from communications, and I believe a few others from our team are on as well. Larry Zook, our president and CEO. So I'll give a few opening comments, and Councilwoman, do we have maybe 5 or 10 minutes for this, or would you prefer we use less than that?
I would suggest that you just make your presentation. If it takes 5, maybe a little less than 10, but let's proceed.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman. Landis Quality Living is a new 501c3 established by Landis Communities to develop and own affordable and middle market housing in Lancaster and the surrounding counties. Our mission is to provide housing with services for adults to age in place and thrive in their community. Landis Communities grows out of Landis Homes. Landis Homes was established as a continuing care retirement community in 1964 and serves nearly 900 residents. Landis Communities was established as the umbrella organization in 2011 and has a variety of affiliates providing housing and services to older adults. Landis Communities is actively engaged with age-friendly Lancaster City initiative and also is a collaborative partner with the Lancaster Downtowners, a village model organization in the city. The location of this new proposed development, Landis Place on King, is ideal with a grocery store next door and a short walk to all the amenities of the central core of Lancaster City, including Central Market. Landis Place on King is intended to help expand downtown westward on King Street and ties nicely in with the Building on Strength plan, adding 82 new housing units. These homes are intended to be accessible to a wide range of income levels, leasing in the range starting at $800 a month. Once the project is approved, we will also begin a capital campaign with the goal of having an additional 10% affordable units. We hope to fill the retail space with a cafe or bistro, serving the residents and the broader community. We're all about community and plan to have residents that are active in the downtown life. Our goal is for this facility to be an integrated part of the folks who live and work in that part of Lancaster City. We will be including a care navigator role in the building to serve older adult residents and also support aging in place with our Landis at Home affiliate. We are thrilled to be part of the vibrant city of Lancaster and look forward to redeveloping the property in a way that can better serve the community that already exists. So Corey, if you wanna take it from here, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to everyone for being on the call. So here you can see the 2 properties that we're looking at, which is the Rendezvous Steakhouse. When they decided to retire, we began discussions to purchase their property to build a 55+ community. And as we said, we also have the House of Taco, which is the neighboring property there, under agreement to purchase that house as well. And so we would be looking at tearing these 2 properties down, which is of course the demolition, and creating an apartment building. Go ahead, Larry, if you could. In its place that we plan to call Landis on King. Here you can get a sense of both the size and the scale This will be a 501c3 corporation similar to Steepleview Lofts. Even though it is a nonprofit, we do plan on paying our normal share of taxes, as that question has come up already with the Historic Commission. There'll be a wide range of income levels available, with rents beginning around $800. And as Yvonne said already, we plan on the bottom floor being open for either a cafe or bistro type service, taking into account the ethnicity in the area already. We want to make whatever goes into that space fit well into the downtown community. Go ahead, Larry. And so here's just a different perspective as you look at it, looking into downtown from the building. And then here's another view. One of the things to note is that we are trying to get outdoor space into all the units. If not outright patios, definitely sliding glass doors that can open so that residents can get a lot of natural light and air as well. And then this gives you some idea of the scale, which again, we received that question at the Historic Commission, and gives you some idea of what it looks like in comparison to the Umbrella Works. So it's very similar in height, if not a little bit less than what the Umbrella Works is. And then lastly, this gives you just a quick sense of, both our commitment to sustainability. You can get a good sense of the outdoor patio space, but there also is some green roof space that you can see there over the parking garage as well. We want to try to have some natural space included in the project. So just some high level facts. We're looking at this building would be about a $22 million investment in the neighborhood. We already talked about the 2 properties, but this would be a 7-story mixed use, 82 residential living units for a 55+ community, with about 2,500 of retail space, as we already said. About half of the units would have parking in the building. We also are looking into some shared car arrangements as well to try to minimize the impact of the cars on downtown. With couples and individuals living together, we're talking well over probably 100 different residents living in the building. And as I also already mentioned, $800 a month as a starting rent. And we're specifically targeting at this at what we would call the middle market, not market rent, but the middle of the market. And then we are looking at trying to have a capital campaign to raise money to try to keep as many units as possible at an affordable level for individuals. So some kind of our mission, values, project goals, as Yvonne said, to provide housing with services for older adults, allowing them to thrive in the community. We really want it to be a community more than just a place to live, providing needs again for that middle market and some at the affordable level. There's also some shared living opportunities with some of the units included. And then we are committed to doing our best on the sustainability and energy efficiency side. Certainly in today's world, it makes sense to do most of those improvements as it can really drop the energy usage. Talked about the green space already and the outdoor space, and then the shared vehicle transportation. We want to do our best to try and have some shared car arrangements. So we've reached out already to several community leaders to make sure that we have support. You can see some of the names there on the first bullet. We've gained the support of the Umbrella Works and HDC Mid-Atlantic. We held a meeting with both the business and rental property owners in the block to introduce them to the project. Held conversations, hopefully, and it may work out that the House of Taco operator just comes in and uses the commercial space that we're going to have as well to keep that business in operation there, and exploring some other additional opportunities for the commercial space. The CRIZ idea to encourage startup food operators or entrepreneurs, and then participation with the Lancaster City Alliance on the streetscape efforts. Just a real quickly, I know this is probably hard to see and we can get you this table, but when we did the market study, as I said, we're really trying to hit the middle of the market. And really, if you look at, there's several circles here, but you can see the median income. The majority of the units will be priced in the red circle there, with most of them falling for individuals with $75,000 or less. Over half of the units would be priced for individuals below the median income, in particular in the blue circle there. While it's difficult to touch kind of the lower three lines there because that's more of a tax credit project, we are trying to get as close to that as possible with the rents on this project. So this gives you a sense of that we're committed for at least 10% of the units to be at, what essentially would be what's called affordable levels. Gives you some sense of what we probably would be at. As we walk through the final feasibility of the project, we'd look at how to distribute these and what makes the most sense, but we want to have at least 10% of those units where we can push the median income as low as possible. So the time frame, we met with the Historic Commission, as you know, and received their endorsement to move forward with the demolition. And so we're asking for City Council to approve us to demo the buildings. If we're lucky enough to receive that approval, then we would look at purchasing the properties in September. Between October and around the February time frame, we'd be going through land development, construction drawings, and then sometime in either the very late winter or perhaps early spring, we'd be completing the final plans, feasibility, the financing, and then the construction project and making a full go, no-go decision, hoping to break ground sometime in the summer of 2021. And then we should be able to complete that project within about a 12-month period and then start the lease-up process in the summer of 2022. And questions and comments, Ed unfortunately wasn't able to be on the call, but there's Ed's contact information as well as Yvonne's.
Thank you. Yvonne, you anticipate 10% of the units possibly being affordable for affordable housing. Approximately how many units would that be?
So 10% of the units would be 8. We're looking, this is about an 82. And so we're looking at, actually, we want all of our units to be affordable within the definition of 30 to 33% of income. We want 10% of those units to really hit that lower income levels.
Income. I don't have any other questions at the moment. Are there any questions from the committee?
If I may, Councilor Craig?
Absolutely.
Yeah, as far as the sustainability efforts for the building, outside of the energy efficiency and the I guess you mentioned the green rooftop, what other practices do you envision being implemented during this project?
Do we have our architect on with us? I'm not sure if Craig Kimmel was able to join. But right now what we're looking at is the various certifications available to projects like this. We're assessing what the cost of that is, what the ROI is. The city has Alerta that can offset some of the additional costs. Right now, it's looking like the additional costs for what we would do are about $500,000.
Craig is on right now.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, Craig. Thanks for joining.
Sure. Yeah, I think everything is pretty much on the table right now in terms of things that we would consider for sustainability. I know one of the things that is a real challenge on this site is the stormwater and the management of that, because there's actually off-site stormwater coming onto these two properties. So one of the things we're actually looking at is trying to define what that rate of water coming onto the property is, and in essence over detaining the stormwater so that we would be managing not just the water that was on our own property, but the water that was upstream as well. So that's just one of the examples of something that we're really kind of studying. We're looking at the soil condition and whether infiltration is a possibility, given the fact that it's going to be infiltrating underneath the building. We're trying to get some geotechnical information back in order to really understand the viability of that. But certainly our goal is to try and use the the infrastructure that we're creating with the building to kind of minimize its impact on any of the city infrastructure related to water and sewer.
Great, thank you, Mr. Kimmel. And I guess my last question is regarding the House of Tacos business that was there. You mentioned that there's a possibility that they may be interested in renting out the space, the commercial space. Has there been conversations around that, or what? I guess also to follow up with that question, you mentioned kind of keeping with the cultural relevance of the community. What steps do you guys plan on taking to make sure that that happens?
That's a great question. Thanks. I'll take that one. Ed Kaminsky, our Director of Land Use Quality Living, did have an initial conversation with the House of Tacos. Right now, we're sort of wide open. Our meeting with some folks from the city, including Milsey and Marisol, they were suggesting, hey, let's make sure that a lot of folks know about this. We have about 2,500 square feet, and Craig, you can correct me or keep me honest. And thinking
That's
that
correct.
Wouldn't it be wonderful to have multiple ethnicities of food, multiple flavors, multiple nationalities represented in that space? So we're working on how that might happen. We want to make sure we don't land on one person before we open it up to those who may be interested.
Great, thank you. Those are all the questions I had, Councilor Craig.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Councilor Arroyo. Are there any other questions from the committee? Hearing none, we'll take questions from the public. Do we have any questions from the public, Amber?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I just added in Stephanie Bradford.
Thank you. Stephanie, go ahead if you're there.
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me okay?
You can.
All right. It's raining on the west side of the city with a little bit of thunder. So that's not me getting dramatic. That's just Mother Nature. I have a couple of questions, and I understand if they can't be answered on the fly like this. So I'd be happy to be in touch otherwise. My first question is, how does this project benefit the city economically?
Well, we certainly think bringing a number of individuals in to live in that area is going to impact the businesses around there. So that would be part of it to start. But I also think, as we mentioned, we are a 501c3 corporation, but we do plan on paying, our real estate taxes, which is not insignificant to the city as well.
Okay. So since you mentioned residents, I'll pop over to there. Do you anticipate that these are people in Lancaster County or Lancaster City who are trying to rehome as they age? And then this one's more for the committee. There seems to be a pretty strong emphasis on the 55 plus age bracket. And I'm confused about that. I spent quite a while working at a new young company a couple of years ago. And, recent college grads, first job out of college, decent pay, but they were stacking themselves, 3 and 4 deep in 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. So twofold question, have we had a traffic study, and why the emphasis on 55 plus?
So Corey, do you want to take the traffic study question, and then I might respond to the 55 plus?
Yeah, regarding the traffic itself, we do not anticipate that to have a big impact. One of the reasons that we chose this was with our success at Steepleview, which is, I think it's about 2 blocks away. The walkability score is really high for this location, which is one of the main reasons we chose it. So similar to what we find at our, retirement communities out that might be in a more rural area, a lot of people may have cars, but they don't use them very often. So we're not anticipating that being an issue at all.
See, I live at the edge of the city and I disagree with you on that. So I'd really like to see some numbers, because if you're banging down King Street, Okay, I see you, Amber. I got 1 minute. If you're banging down King Street, it can get pretty jammed up, especially if it's Christmas time or there's construction. Since I only have a minute, can I throw out the rest of the questions and maybe somebody can get back to me?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay. Will there be additional fees for the needs of people as they age in place? For instance, if they want transportation as opposed to their own car, maintenance in their homes, basic medical, which is offered at some places, because 800, if that's the starting point, then that's still a high starting point. Do we know how the people at Steeple View feel about their living experience? The green space is necessary, and also the general look of the building, I don't think is in keeping with the landscape of that part of the city. And I'd like to have somebody revisit the general look of the building. Those are the basics, unless I have 10 more seconds. Amber? Yeah.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Excuse me, one moment, Councillor Craig, I'm sorry. Stephanie, can you just, for the record, tell us what street you live on?
Sure. I live in the Clock Towers, so the official address is 917 Columbia Avenue, but the parking lot is at Wheatland and West End.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else in the wings, Amber?
Yes, adding Nick SH.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nick. I'm Severi Hiller. I live on East Lemon Street. I'll probably be repeating myself later today, but I just wanted to make sure that we are, really thinking about the effects of gentrification that this project may have, particularly on King Street. So kind of piggybacking off what Stephanie said, I want to ask specifically, how is this project not only going to help the people of Lancaster, but particularly the working class and poor folks of Lancaster City?
Thank you. Is that the extent of your comment, Nick, or your question?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Is there, Yvonne, would you address that, please?
Sure. Our goal is that this not increase the gentrification. Our goal is that this really serves the middle market, not just the upper end. And that was our goal with Steeple View. And I think we've met that goal there and really want to expand our service to the middle market of those 55 plus. 55 plus, what we've learned with our experience already in the city is that that population is, in terms of age, is trimodal. We have a group that is working, working adults, early retired and often part-time working, and then adults that are fully retired. So I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. Amber, are there any other callers in the wings?
Yes, there's one more.
Thank you.
All right, Eric, go ahead. Name, address.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eric Fisher. I live on Woods Avenue, just outside of the city line. My question, and again, it might not be able to be answered today, would be to have some information around the demographics of your other unit, the Steeple View Lofts, and also information around your housing and employment policy. As you know, our city really celebrates the diversity that we have, and all the leaders in front of you today have spoken up for Black Lives Matter, people of color, Black, Indigenous, people of color, BIPOC. I'm working on my language. We also have an inclusive housing and employment policy in the city that we're quite proud of, that predates many others across the country. So I would love some assurances that you guys have already adhered to these, and that you are looking to find ways to bring more diversity within your community.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Faith. Thank you, everyone.
Yvonne.
Okay. This is a long question and really deserves a conversation and some more listening to your concerns. So I want to start with that. Landis Communities has made a statement in favor of diversity and Black Lives Matter. We know that we have a lot of listening and growth to do, and we are embarking in that. Our goal is that this community really add to that diversity in the city, and definitely we do honor the inclusive policy of the city.
Thank you. Amber, if we don't have any other people waiting in the wings, I'd like to make a motion.
No one else, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. I motion that we move this to full council on August 11th, I think.
Second.
In that,
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We have one other item on the agenda this evening. It's Administration Bill number 8, 2020, a petition from UPMC Pinnacle for rezoning 250 College Avenue. Not sure who's here to speak on that. It could be Chris, it could be Dana, Dominic.
I believe that Dana is present, as is at least one CPED staff member. I don't know, I'm not aware of if there's a representative from the other developer, but let's start. Is Mr. Delks on the call?
Yes, I just added him. Not seeing him though.
Hello.
Oh, there he is.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, councilors. Yes, unfortunately, I can't see all of the boxes in the screen. I see Ms. Claudia Shank, who is council representative UMC. I also believe that our developers, Dominic Wicker and Dana Hanton from HDC are here tonight to speak.
I see Dana. I'll add. Let me see.
And I imagine that this will be a topic of some discussion tonight, and I know we have a lot of parties here to speak on the matter. So I will try to be brief, but I at least wanted to give a little bit of process background for the zoning amendment that you'll be hearing tonight. So Councilor Craig, if it's okay, I will give a brief intro and talk about some of the history just over the past year or so. And then I think at that point, I would turn it over. I'm not sure who would go next, maybe Ms. Shank, to talk about the zoning amendment.
Take it away.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you again. Nice to be here with you. This project has been in the work for many months now, and I just wanted to take us back to 2019 and try to set the stage a little bit for what you'll hear tonight. As many of you know, the announcement to close the hospital happened back in December of 2018. And the closure of the hospital then did occur in February 2019. That precipitated a number of events after that for the city to try to determine what would be the course of the future for this particular site. In May of 2019, so a little over a year ago, this actually happened before my time, but the city administration hosted a public meeting in May of 2019, just to get a sense of what were the desires for this site. Understanding that the city did not necessarily have control over the private sale from UPMC to a potential new buyer, but recognizing that we could try to garner some input from the community and provide that to UPMC. So it was really an exercise to understand what might surrounding community want and not want at that particular location. So fast forward a little while past last summer to December of 2019, UPMC submitted a zoning petition to rezone the site from hospital complex designation to mixed use. As per the typical process, that proposed zoning amendment first went to the City Planning Commission, and on December 18th, 2019, there was a very healthy debate about the proposal in December, and the City Planning Commission elected to table that particular petition until January. They took up the petition to rezone again in January, and after another very robust discussion, decided to unanimously approve the rezoning from hospital complex to mixed use. They did provide some thoughtful considerations for council in addition to their recommendation for approval at that time. Also wanted to note that the Lancaster County Planning Commission also recommended approval for the rezoning in January 2020. One thing I'd like to note here, and I don't want to get far ahead because I believe Ms. Shank will speak to this, but wanted to be clear that the rezoning of this project is really the first step in a very lengthy land development process. After the rezoning comes a review by both the Historical Commission, the City Historical Commission, and also additional land development review by the Planning Commission. In terms of the zoning itself, this is the first time that the council is officially hearing the request to rezone before the committee, and then ultimately there are 2 readings and consideration for adoption. So I think I'll pause there. I tried to hit the highlights from the recent context and background and also process, but if there are any questions that arise around process or how the city has engaged on this project in recent months, I'm happy to answer those, and I will be around until you guys conclude.
Thank you, Mr. Delph. We are ready to hear from, I believe, Dana. Is that who's going to speak?
Ms. Strazo, I believe that, sorry, pardon me, Councilor Craig, may I?
Yes, go ahead.
Ms. Strazo, I believe that Dana is on, if she has not already been added, and I believe that it's possible that Dominic is on under Ann Wicker in the attendees list.
Oh, okay.
Okay, should I add that in?
Yes, you can go ahead and add both of them. I anticipate there will be some screen sharing, and I believe they have a slide deck.
Okay, Dana is in.
I'm on.
Hello, Dana.
Hello. I believe that Dominic Wilker is going to go ahead and kick off our presentation this evening, and I will follow after his overview and introduction.
Hi, thank you very much. I was just my wife had the account. Thank you. I'm Dominic Wicker. I'm a vice president over at Washington Place Equities. We're very excited to be here this evening, talking a little bit about a project on the West End. So maybe we can hit the next slide, please. So I just wanted to make sure we were oriented. If we can go back just very quickly on the property. It's obviously it's very large. What we're looking at right now is the College Ave view of the St. Joseph's UPMC hospital. You'll see the old buildings on the right, the new buildings on the left. In the rear, you'll see both the parking lot as well as the mental health building. We'll refer to all of these in the presentation. In the immediate foreground, you'll see what we're going to call a satellite lot off of College, and then towards the upper left-hand corner, kind of shielded from the trees, you'll see the images of a site off of Wheatland Avenue, but I just wanted to make sure we were conversant on what we're looking at. So next slide, please. So we really, ourselves and HDC have been working for the last several months on a mixed use, mixed income project in on this site in the west end of Lancaster. And it's something we're very, very excited about. We've spent a lot of time thinking about the different components, spent a lot of time engaging with folks, both within the city council, but sort of in the immediate area and then beyond. And we'll talk more about that as well. But this is a project I think that will, is transformative, is of a scale that is so large and has a lot of powerful impacts to the city and the surrounding community. And we want to talk more about that as well. But as a mixed use, mixed income project is really the overall theme of that. Next slide, please. So really, we're looking at a site that is incredibly walkable, is close to downtown, yet retains its own character. HCD will talk more about the need for affordable housing in Lancaster. And we believe that this site really, and this combined project really makes huge steps in that regard. From a mixed use standpoint, we want to integrate. We want to mix market rate, affordable housing, for sale housing, office space, community-driven retail, all at a neighborhood scale. And all of that sort of fits in pretty seamlessly with the surrounding neighborhood. And so those are all strong elements of the project and of the plan. We also want to preserve the historic elements that as they exist, primarily the old hospital at the site. And that would be, we would look to do that as a market rate conversion. Finally, we want to start thinking about the possibility of adding green space, of public space, to a community that, and to a site that, to act as even more of an amenity to the site. So we think this is a win. We think that this is a strong step in the right direction for, a lot of different elements that have been talked about for the site and for the city for a while. And we want to share that more with you this evening. Next slide. So we're Baltimore-based, primarily a multifamily developer of market rate apartments, do a lot of work, both new construction, also adaptive reuse. We've got a very large footprint in the Baltimore region and then have been expanding northward into South Central Pennsylvania. Lancaster's been an area of interest of us for a very long while. And I think for us, relative to this site, we want to leave you with, we are a long-term owner. We very, very rarely make sales of property. And so those properties that we develop for our own account, we stay, we keep, we really integrate ourselves and become part of the community. And so, we have a long-term idea. This is going to be a long project, and we're committed to that. It's been several years for us already. And, we look forward to not only the site being rezoned, but, the successful development over the next few years. So next slide.
Thank you, Dominic. I'm Dana Hanshin, President and CEO of HDC Mid-Atlantic. Some of you are already very familiar with HDC, as we've been around for nearly 50 years providing affordable housing in Lancaster County, as well as in South Central Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Maryland. Our mission and vision is to envision a world where a safe, welcoming, affordable place to call home is open to everyone. We see ourselves as resident advocates, trusted developers, property managers, community partners, and collaborators. And since coming on board at HDC 2 years ago, my focus has really been to look at people and partnerships to advance this mission. We've been headquartered, as I mentioned, in Lancaster County for 50 years. We are the largest provider of affordable housing in the county. We have over 21 housing communities in the county, serving over 2,300 residents, and 9 of those communities are located in Lancaster City, serving close to 1,000. Overall, in our footprint, 3-state footprint, we own and or operate 58 communities and serve over 5,000 residents. And late last year, we embarked upon a strategic planning process to establish a new direction and focus in how we advance our mission and why we do this work. And at the cornerstone of that is around advancing equity and what ways that HDC can increase opportunity and remove barriers to provide greater access for people in need of affordable housing. So that is really why we are connected to this project and to working with Dominic as a partner, a strategic partner, and understanding the transformational approach that we're looking at and reusing this, these existing buildings and campus to not only look at market rate uses, but also affordable uses and ensuring that there are many ways that the community can benefit from local businesses to residents at various incomes. So I'll turn it back over to Dominic to talk about the initial master program that we're working with and walk you through the various components in our collaborative model. Next slide, Matt. Thank you.
So let me, we'll refer back to this in a second, but just wanted to orient you. We saw the aerial. What we see in yellow is we're proposing as market rate adaptive reuse residential. That's in the old hospital. You can see the little stretch along College in blue, light blue, green. That would be you know, street level retail. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Purple, we've got that in the what we're calling the new hospital, and that would be office space and office conversion. Red is sort of phase 2 for HDC and affordable, and then blue is for sale residential as well. So just want to orient you quickly. We'll go to the next slide and we'll talk a little bit more about each of those pieces. So altogether, what you see here, plus the 2 satellite locations that we'll talk about in a second, it's about $90 million. So each of those components kind of taken together start to add up in a pretty significant way. For us, really the reason we're here really was the old hospital building, which is in the yellow. And we see that as being potentially converted into somewhere in the order of about 150 to 175 market rate apartments. We think that there is a tremendous amount of demand in the city for high quality residential choices. You know, we're very heartened by our analysis of market studies and sort of comparable projects experience, you know, and so we really think that this will be a real asset and really stand out as something different in the marketplace. As part of this project and as part of this building, we would look to relocate the existing entrance of the building really back to its historic roots at the corner of Walnut and College. In so doing, what would that what's now the current entrance, kind of stretching along College Avenue. We would look to have some type of, you know, complementary ground level retail in the neighborhood of about 10,000 square feet. We really think that because of the location and the size, and I think the character of the nature of the neighborhood, you know, that really, I think, although it's very early, really wants to be locally independent, you know, something that really speaks to the community that it's in. We think there's great opportunity there to start that process probably earlier than we would, to work with local organizations such as Assets or the Chamber relative to just finding folks that fit, and you know, we can kind of work with them to really work on that space. Moving down on College Avenue, we think that the new building, we had looked at it for a variety of uses. At the end of it, we feel like its best conversion possibility is as an office space. It's about 40 to 50,000 feet with ground level parking. We think that that by itself is a huge economic development opportunity. It really creates a larger footprint options for folks, businesses who might be interested in locating into the Lancaster community, but can't find that location or can't find that type of that space in the core of downtown. We think that, you know, we can really combine the best of an urban location with, you know, ample parking, and feel like that might be an attractive combination for some suburban users to come to relocate. So that's a piece, you know, obviously COVID's impacted that as well, but that's part of our thinking right now and part of our plan. Let me cut kind of diagonally across the site into the blue. So there on the back parking lot, we would see that as a for sale townhouse product, very similar in scale to what's on all the surrounding streets. So Walnut, West End, Marietta. We think that's really keeping in, you know, in sort of complementary use and complementary mass. And in fact, that type of structure, these types of towns were there back in the 50s before the parking lot was there. So in a lot of ways, we're looking to restore the historic sort of urban fabric that was, you know, was present on the site, and creates a nice transition from higher density, larger buildings along College to step down into the more residential neighborhoods. And then lastly, but certainly not least here, HDC, and they'll talk more about that, they're looking to do something very similar in scale to the for sale townhouses on the site as part of their phase 2. So as a couple blanket statements here, you know, we're working with a design team that is very knowledgeable and experienced relative to, you know, green and sustainable building. We've done that on a lot of our projects of recent years. And so that's something that we'll bake in right from the get-go as we really advance the design across the site. And I know HDC feels the same. And then lastly, relative to the parking, because it has come up in some of our outreach and conversations with folks, on this site, every individual component will be self-parked, you know, with a, you know, in order to, you know, creating adequate parking for that. So, you know, I think it will be in somewhat a self-contained site from that regard. So that's really a very big overview of the kind of the working design of the project. And so let me turn it over to HDC to talk a little bit more specifically about some of their components.
Next slide, please. Good evening, everybody. I'm Claude Hicks, with the Director of Real Estate Development for HDC. We wanted to point out some of the big issues and some of the big statistics in the area with respect to affordable housing. Lancaster has now gone, more than 50% of its population is now renters. Most of them, if not a significant portion of them, are paying more than 30% of their rent. The demand for affordable housing in the area has risen substantially over the last decade. We currently have at HDC over 3,600 people on our wait list for our 3,700 apartments. Many of our complexes have closed their wait list because the wait is over 3 years in an effort to get an apartment. Nationally, the demand for affordable housing outstrips the supply by 4 to 1. Next slide, please. I want you to take a look at where we are focused for the affordable housing. You see the master site that Dominic just went over. And in the middle of that, you see the yellow box. That yellow box will be phase 2 of our affordable housing plans. The 2 spaces in red will be phase 1. We expect to put 30 units each on the first phase sites. These currently belong to UPMC. The one site to your left is on Wheatland Avenue. The other site is directly across the current entrance, right next to the medical office building that's currently on College Avenue now. We expect that there will be 30 units on each of the phase 1 sites, with another 60 units on the phase 2 site. Next slide. We expect that the apartments on the first phase will be a 2 to 3 to 4 story building, 42 one-bedroom apartments, 18 two-bedroom apartments, rents ranging from $200 to $850 a month. We expect that the income level for these apartments will be somewhere between $12,000 to $40,000 annually, depending on their household size. Our total development cost will be about $14.7 to $15 million. I want to point out that while we are in the initial stages of design with respect to what could go on the two outlying sites, we do know that on the master site in phase 2, we want to focus on a townhome style development for 2 reasons. Number one, it is conducive with what Dominic is expecting to build on the master site. So we want something that looks like a neighborhood, that looks like it's been there for a long time. Secondly, and most importantly, the townhome style will give us access to a little bit larger families. And we have an expectation at the end of the 15-year compliance period that we are going to be utilizing with low-income housing tax credits, that we would actually offer these units for sale to residents who are in the units either from the beginning, stay with the hope of buying that unit, or residents who have occupied the unit somewhere during that 15-year period. We expect also that the use of low-income housing tax credits will be on phase 1 as one project. We'll submit both sites at the same time, and then phase 2 on the interior. We expect that the initial designs will also incorporate parking on the Wheatland on the rear of the site. And on College Avenue, we're in discussions now with UPMC about the parking deck that is immediately behind the current property. Next slide. So the big question is, who would qualify to live here? When we look at, especially post-COVID and during COVID, the term essential workers, home health aides with their average salary in Lancaster, retail cashiers, delivery truck drivers, teachers' assistants, all would qualify to live in the affordable housing of this project. Next slide. Dana?
Thanks a lot. So we're very early on in the development process, and we firmly believe that community engagement is a cornerstone for successful housing development, whether it's market rate or affordable. And we've been working over the past several weeks, over a month, to engage a number of different stakeholders, and want to provide you an update on where we are, including having individual meetings with key city council members and enlisting support from core stakeholders from various organizations that include the Coalition for Sustainable Housing, a cross-sector coalition made up of organizations and individuals who are committed to Lancaster County's prosperity and bringing more affordable housing into the community. We also have support from the Lancaster City Alliance's Building on Strength convening, which is made up of 50 private and public sector stakeholders that are in support of this project in terms of its equitable development focus and its balanced approach in looking at market rate and affordable commercial, retail, and the like. In addition, we also receive support from the Lancaster Equity Community Development Corporation, which is an organization made up of member organizations committed to being able to advance equity in the city of Lancaster. Dominic had mentioned earlier that we had also reached out and connected with Assets Lancaster to identify opportunities by which we can work with them, that Dominic can work with them to recruit local businesses and entrepreneurs to the office and retail space, focusing not only on local businesses, but also being able to cultivate a diverse and inclusive mix of businesses in the community. And we also have done initial preliminary work with key neighborhood groups, including conversations with the Clock Tower Condo Association Board, West Lancaster Jewels Neighborhood Association, the leadership there, and then Put People First campaign we've had a conversation with. We've also had invited 50 individuals to a virtual neighborhood meeting, which will be held this Thursday, August 6th. And we've had individual conversations with at least 12 neighbors to date. As you may be aware, the area directly around the blocks, directly around the campus does not have an organized neighborhood association. So we've been building out our network through individual conversations, and by which those neighbors would share additional neighbor information so we can identify as many people as possible to invite them to participate in a larger forum for their feedback and input. So far we have over 30 registrants for the August 6th neighborhood meeting. But I also wanted to take the opportunity to share, next slide, Matt, to talk about some general feedback that we've had from neighbors to date. And overwhelmingly, I would say that have been supportive of affordable housing and are very excited about the opportunity to bring mixed income diverse housing options for the location. They are interested in nearby local retail by local businesses, and important to attract local businesses to the office and retail space is very much what we heard. They are desiring community gathering and open spaces. They want to see local contractors, vendors, suppliers engaged to keep dollars in the local economy. And they want to see architecture that fits the design and scale of the existing neighborhood. Some of the most frequently raised concerns, no surprise, is parking. And also concerns about construction noise and disruption in the short term, as that neighborhood is also moving through another construction project by Presbyterian Homes across the street. So they're a bit weary of construction. And we think that based on from the initial feedback we've had from neighbors, that we are trying to incorporate those elements and address those concerns as we move through the engagement process, which is ongoing. It's not a one and done sort of opportunity to provide input and reflect on how this project evolves at its very early stage. So I want to talk about the upcoming process we have community engagement. Matt, if you can go to next slide. Thanks. So as I mentioned, we're starting out and bringing everyone together where we've had initial conversations with to get a sense of what their concerns and what they were excited about, to speak with them further on August 6th. We will be launching a project website on August 6th, where you can get real-time updates on how this project is evolving. And we'll include a link for signing up for an email list. And then we'll have ongoing opportunities for input around critical benchmarks on the website and to the email list. So this is not just, again, a one and done process, but throughout the process, especially as it relates to design development, as it relates to streetscape, and all the other benchmarks that we'll be moving through. And Dominic is going to talk a little bit more about those critical benchmarks and next steps to give you an overview of our timeline and process.
Sure, thanks. Next slide, great. So as a couple of folks have mentioned already, this is very early, very important step for us, but it's the beginning. And so, as far as our neighborhood and stakeholder engagement, we've done, we think, a pretty good job so far, but that will only continue as the project moves forward. There are going to be lots of steps, lots of involvement, obviously lots of input from, different constituencies throughout. So that process will really continue, but focus right now on the rezoning. What we would hope is that with the committee's recommendation, we'd go to full council, and then we would hope that council would also act upon the petition. We would then kind of on ourselves, we would then proceed with moving towards an acquisition. Should have mentioned earlier, we're a contract holder of the site. We have an arrangement with the seller, as does HDC, for the acquisition. And so once that's behind us, I think we'd really then get full into the design development, cost estimating, really start to put some meat to the bones of the overall plan. And that process will take time, and will represent a pretty significant expenditure of resources. But we'll need to do that. And at the end of that, we will then put that out not only for the city and other regulatory bodies for permitting, but then we'd also be looking for the capital markets. And probably around that time, the different components on the site will start to diverge and kind of start independently kind of moving forward. And, there might be some differences between the office building or the residential or for sale or however. But ultimately, we'll look to get these financed, start construction, and then ultimately, bring these projects to occupancy and, put them back on, put them into public use, bring them back onto your tax rolls, and hopefully have, kind of the dynamic project that we would expect. As far as a time frame, I think for phase one of HDC, and then for the residential components of our side, both the multifamily and the for sale, those would be really in the time frame of about 3 years. It would probably take us about 1.5 years to go through the top bullets, all but the bottom two, and then probably about another 1.5 years or so for a construction period. And it's a long process, and it has a lot of steps and a lot of places for it to go sideways. But this is an experienced team, and we're confident that with the support of the stakeholders and of sort of the larger community, we feel like we've got a path to a successful project, and we're very, very excited about it. So we look forward to working with you and the rest of the council. And I think that might be our last slide. So, oh, no, one more. So these were some quotes from the recent news articles. I won't read them, but for ourselves, we felt like they were really capturing a lot of what we were had thought from the very beginning. Really focused on the mixed use, the affordable, looking at what's best for the city, and we're very proud to be associated as a team, and we're proud to be associated with the project. And again, we look forward to working with you moving forward.
Thank you so much, Dominic.
Thank you.
Although you've given a wonderful presentation, very thorough, I'm sure there's going to be questions from other members of the committee and quite possibly the public. I have none at the moment. You've answered every concern that I would have addressed. So I'm going to open it up to the committee. Are there any questions from the committee?
I do have a question, Councilor Craig, if I may.
Thank you.
So the only question that I have is, could you explain to me how the 15-year part of the project works, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
We expect to utilize equity from the sale of low-income housing tax credits. And every project has what's essentially called a 15-year compliance period. The initial investment lasts for that long. The good thing about that is that when we use the low-income housing tax credit program, we are committing to 35 years of affordability from the date of placed in service, 35 years out. The second thing is at the year 15, we are allowed to resyndicate the project. There is a recognition by the investors and by PHFA that at year 15, you need new energy efficient materials. You need new windows, perhaps. You need upgrades. So it allows to resyndicate that project and bring fresh capital and fresh equity into the deal.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Sure,
That's my only question at this time.
Thank you, Councilor Malia. Are there any other questions from the committee?
I guess I'm technically a member of your committee, but I'll let other committee members go before I engage my prerogative, Councilor Craig.
Thank you. If there are no other questions from the committee, it would be your turn, Council President.
Thank you, Councilor Craig. Dominic, Dana, thank you for the thorough presentation. I want to start my comment by saying, while I'm sure that we all have questions, and while many of us have concerns, I want to take a moment to applaud council and the administration, all the partners, and the public in particular. Whether this is the direction that we go or not, this is a significant improvement, I think, on initial proposals or what a lot of doomsayers had to say about the ultimate fate of the site. And I think it speaks to the power of council to publicly use and emphasize the word affordable housing. And I hope that we'll keep doing that as often as we can. So just piggybacking on Councilor Garcia Molina's question, Dominic, Dana, can you talk a little bit, if you have a little bit more detail about the process by which you propose to make that home ownership offer of people who are residents at the time when you cross the 15-year mark, and how might they would their rent be building equity toward that at some point, or would they be buying it outright and getting completely external financing? I know there are a number of models for this sort of thing. Can you speak to that a little bit?
I can take that question. We are actually working through that scenario right now in one of our communities in Lidditz called Larkspur, where we're at the 15-year period. And early on, when we were developing that project, we elected to provide the opportunity for current residents to purchase those homes. So the process that we're working through right now, you typically start that process about 3 years before that 15-year compliance period. It's not necessarily a program, given the requirements of the low income housing tax credit program, that you are able to contribute rent as equity over time. So really what we are providing is an option for that current resident, whoever's in that unit, to purchase that home. So for example, the homes that we have available in Larkspur is that we have estimated the fair market value to be around $145,000. But we have underwritten that project that we would offer the opportunity for residents to purchase those homes at around $75,000. And then we partner with Tabor and LHOP in terms of homeownership education, in terms of financial counseling, to get them ready to purchase that home. Now, you're not required to purchase it. You could decide to continue to rent it, but the goal is to make sure that that rent, that the mortgage payment that you have is less than the rent you've been paying. And of course, with a mortgage payment that stays flat. And we work with a lot of our banking partners that are very familiar with providing affordable home ownership mortgages to lower income residents. And what we end up doing is putting on a soft second mortgage that basically is the difference between the fair market value and the purchase price of the home. And then we'll require that to be in place for 10 years. So actually that will self-amortize over a 10-year period. Now, should that resident decide to sell their home in that time, they either continue the affordability with the next homeowner, or they would have to address the difference in that soft second and the soft second payment that's left. But technically, if you're in that then property, then over 10 years, that goes away, and you automatically end up building wealth in your own home and having the full value of $145,000 after you initially purchase the home. So it's a really unique opportunity. It's unique in Pennsylvania. Not a lot of folks have done it. I think Claude will tell you that I don't know that anyone in Pennsylvania has adopted this model. In Cleveland, Ohio, there is a shop, HDC, this is their model, where they construct every credit deal as an opportunity to provide home ownership. So we actually hope to settle with our first home buyer within the next few months. We have identified in Larkspur.
Thank you, Dana. Councilor Craig, I'm done.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee?
Councilor Craig, if I may.
Absolutely, go right ahead.
and maybe I missed this, but are there any anticipated challenges? I understand there's going to be multiple phases throughout this project. What we're hearing now is, there's a lot of great things that I see in this plan, but are there anything that could possibly pop up throughout this process that could deter the direction of this project?
Well, I mean, I think Dominic and I are both smiling.
I mean, we're many. I mean,
and there's
I don't want to, I don't want to be cute, but this is complicated. We had some early conversation, just to give you a flavor. We had some early conversations about sort of infrastructure and stormwater, and that's obviously for a site like this, it's very complicated. So we're very early in that process, but trying to get our arms around what that looks like and what kind of system is going to be required and is going to be workable. That's one. Obviously, the property tax situation. I mean, Alerta is incredibly helpful. But that's something that we're just really keeping an eye on. Had a great conversation with some of your city staff the other day, just to kind of make sure that we understand fully, how that process works and where that goes. I will tell you one place we're not terribly concerned. Well, one more concern. The building is pretty cooperative. We've been looking at it for over a year. We've kicked tires. We've tore up walls. Right now we're at a point where we're working with the Department of Interior at the federal level to make sure that we understand the suitability of the project for federal historic tax credits. That'll be an enormous, part of our capital stack relative to that component. I think the office market, I kind of alluded to it softly, but we're not sure where that is. Especially, given the certain state of that market right now. But one piece where I would say that we have very little concern, and it really is a tribute to where the city is just the residential market. We find that to be very strong. As we've watched other projects, mostly on the smaller side, but some recently of some scale. That really feels good. And for us as, kind of very experienced multifamily owners, we feel like that is, that we'll be swimming with the tide on that regard. So that's something, but it's complicated, and it's big and it's complicated, and things happen, these pandemics happen, and all of a sudden the financial markets are turned upside down, and, so it's a process. But like I said, we're good at problem solving, and we've got good lines of communication with kind of the parties that be, and we feel like those two things will get us far. And so I'm sure Dana's got more to add.
Well, and I was just speaking to the affordable housing piece and going back to the low income housing tax credit program. As many of you know, it's a very competitive process that the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency has an application for, and typically it's where you go in once for your project. You typically may not get funded the first time around, but may have to wait another year to submit that application, because the need and demand for affordable housing is so great, and there's so many incredible projects that are going on across the state. So it really does require a lot of advocacy and creative ways to look at problem solving. Right now we have a project that we're estimating at $15 million, and we don't have a dime raised for it, but we know we have a pro forma that shows we have the ability and path to get there. But it is very challenging. We think it's a very compelling project, very competitive in terms of scoring, because that's what PHFA looks at. And as soon as we get through this one phase, we're going to start looking at how to submit the highest scoring application possible to PHFA to get funded on the first round. And you'll hear us talk a lot about points, which sounds very less than human, but it does come down to a points game a lot of times at the state level. But having the advocacy and having the story around the transformation and the equitable approach to taking an obsolete buildings and repurposing them in a way where many people in the community can benefit is a very, very compelling case for PHFA and very attractive to them.
Thank you both. I guess a follow-up to that would be understanding the complexity of this and the different phases that it's going to take. Understand there is a virtual town hall that's going to follow later, or I guess next week or this week. Not sure when, I forget. But the next time, as we go through this process, what is the intention in continuing to engage the community to make sure that concerns are heard throughout the process?
I could start. I think we're going to be here for a long time, and we want to be a part of something and not be fighting something. And so I think we've been successful so far in really trying to educate folks about what we're doing. We'd like to continue that. I think at some point, there might be some self-selection, and folks might focus on particular areas of interest, whether that's sustainability or historic or, retail merchandising. And, would like to kind of create, vehicles and forums for those folks to air their thoughts. On Thursday, we'll be, releasing, kind of just basically a website for the project, and kind of the overall larger project, just to give people who can't participate or haven't participated so far, just a place where they can touch base and see where we are, but then also, drop us a line, whether it's a comment, criticism, whatever. And so we want to stay engaged. I mean, I don't think we'll have neighborhood meeting after neighborhood meeting every single, week, but I think that there's going to be lots of big milestones that will, require and involve larger folks than just our development team. And, we welcome that. And so, again, I mean, I don't have I think we'll figure it out a little bit on the fly. But I think the last, month, 2 months on this effort has given us a lot of standing and certainly given us opportunities to kind of plug into, a number of stakeholder organizations that, represent larger groups, and then kind of can filter the information down. And then, of course, the immediate neighbors, organized or not, we're going to want to figure out a way to keep them involved once we do get to a point where we're disrupting their lives with, construction noise or construction issues. And, that's a little further down the road, but, we've done all this in the past, and we would continue to do that. So I'd love to turn it over to Dana and get her thoughts also.
No, I think Dominic, you're, right on point in terms of the engagement, and kicking it off really in a holistic way this Thursday. We've had individual conversations. Anybody who has said, here's a list of residents, across the street that I know, we've been reaching out to them to make sure we put them on the email list, or if they want to have an individual conversation, we spent learning and listening from them so we can prepare for the meeting on Thursday, so we can begin to sort of address those issues up front and then dig a little deeper on what other ways that we could be more responsive. But I think, having a schedule of what those milestones are across the project is something that Dominic and I need to build out to set up the expectations that, we'll have this ongoing vehicle through the project website, but then be able to know way in advance when we're going to be hosting a virtual meeting or in-person meeting, if we get to that point, to when we're arriving at a critical benchmark that is important for the community to weigh in on.
Thank you, Dana. Go ahead, Jamie.
I'm sorry, I was just saying thank you. That's all, Councilor Craig.
Thank you.
Craig, I have a question, if I may.
Yes, please.
Dana, related to the application for the low-income tax credits, what do you need to demonstrate in terms of ownership, or I'm assuming it can't be that you're submitting them tomorrow because there hasn't been a decision related to zoning and so on. Can you just describe what position you need to be in to get in line, because it is such a long process?
So I'll talk about 2 high-level sort of thresholds, and then I'll turn it over to Claude to all the details that his team ends up having to, the T's to cross and the I's to dot to get ready for an application that is probably about, 8 inches thick and we have to provide it in like, I don't know, 6 or 8 copies. But really the first piece is that we need to demonstrate site control that we have, and we have executed that with UPMC. So you can't go in to submit tax credits without appropriate site control and appropriate zoning for the project, of course. But then you go in to apply for low-income housing tax credits, and you have to have all your funding either committed or in place before going in for tax credits. So tax credits is the last piece. You can't really have any gaps in funding or be able to demonstrate that you can't make the project economically feasible. So between now and when we apply for tax credits, which PHFA has moved their deadline, typical rounds are usually open in November. They have moved that into next year related to some concerns and delays around COVID, that we would have to be ready to go with all of our financing in place. With rezoning and our due diligence and site control at that point. And Claude, you can talk more specifically about, additional items that we would need to make sure we address.
In addition to zoning and site control, we have to do a full scale architectural detail. What is this going to look like? How is it going to be built? We have to include our energy efficiency requirements into the plans and specifications. Those have to be 95% complete. So it is not as though we can just say we'd like to build a building. We have to have all of that in the application when we submit it. We must have not only our debt lined up, but our equity provider. So we have to have our investors lined up. They have to commit to the equity that they are putting into the project. We have to have all of our environmental and all of the technical third-party reports that you would expect, market studies, traffic studies, all of those have to be included in the application as well. After we do all of that, you literally have a complete project that we are submitting. We then get scored. What is great about this particular project is that PHFA rarely sees a project like this outside of Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. Those are the primary urban areas in the state, and they see these kinds of projects all the time. So this will be unusual for PHFA. They have encouraged it. They have encouraged cities the size of Lancaster to do something like this, to be creative. But the fact that it is mixed use, mixed income, that it is enhancing a neighborhood, and that it is putting a building back into service that was intended for something else entirely, are all points that PHFA looks at and would apply to this project.
Thank you. I'm also assuming, Dana, that home funds will be sought from the city and or the county at some point in the future.
That is correct. We are anticipating being able to apply for home funds to help fill the gap.
Thank you.
Okay, are there further questions from anyone on the committee? If not, at this time, we will open this up to questions from the public pertaining to this issue, the rezoning, and we would keep our comments or questions to 3 minutes.
Councillor Craig, if I may,
President.
give me just a moment. I am going to read into the record the comments that were submitted beforehand.
Okay, thank you.
So if you'll give me just a moment. Mr. Harris has been kind enough to send them to me. And I will begin with this comment by Marcella Hostetler. It reads, "My husband and I live at 309 Northwest End Avenue. As such, we have been close neighbors to the old hospital building for the past 2 decades. We are looking forward to tonight's meeting about rezoning the former UPMC building at 250 College Avenue. We do not know if there will be an opportunity to provide comments during the meeting, so I am sending this email to voice our support for the rezoning and the proposed mixed-use redevelopment of the property that would include market rate and affordable housing, as well as other businesses. We offer this support as close neighbors to the property for the past 2 decades. We recognize the importance of quality health care for local residents Indeed, our second daughter was born in that hospital in 1998. Unfortunately, the structure has not provided an effective foundation for a vital modern healthcare facility for many years, despite numerous efforts by different organizations. We are confident that no amount of practical renovation could secure its future as a hospital facility that would attract a sufficient patient base to thrive. Thus, we support the proposed rezoning and are happy to provide further comments if needed. That was Marcella Hostetler. Mr. Harris has all of these and will be able to record them. I'm reading them aloud for the benefit of the meeting. Next, we have Justin Eulis at 325 Northwest End Avenue. Justin says, as a neighborhood resident and consulting engineer for hospital design and operations, I fully support rezoning this parcel. Without having detailed knowledge of this facility, I expect that any renovations to meet the current standards in healthcare will be prohibitively expensive and lead providers to build alternative facilities in the greater area, such as health systems have recently determined to do so. Assuming that this facility can't be repurposed for healthcare in a financially sustainable way, then in my opinion, the next best alternative is a mixed use model containing market rate and below market rate housing. The redevelopment of this site is a unique opportunity for Lancaster. Next, actually, let me mix it up a little bit. I will then read Mr. Jose Diaz's comment. Jose lives at 872 Helen Avenue. Jose says, "Dear council members, the worldwide occurrence of COVID-19 has shown how weak the USA's so-called health system, has shown how weak is the USA's so-called health system. It has shown the lack of preparedness that this nation has for a pandemic and the total absence of a centralized system with the capacity of supporting decision-making at a state level. One of the reasons for this situation is the understanding of people's health as a business. This is the case with UPMC. We cannot afford to keep hospital facilities closed when there is no local and national certainty of where we are going with this pandemic. The financial interests of businesses like UPMC or any of its kind cannot be a reason to work on rezoning an area that has been so important for its health services to the community. I join the voices of Put People First PA on their demand for stopping the rezoning of Old St. Joe's Hospital. Respectfully, Jose Diaz." Just a second. Next, we have Mr. John Holden at 342 Northwest End Avenue. As longtime residents of the 300 block of Northwest End Avenue, our family strongly supports the rezoning of the former UPMC facility. There will never be a hospital in the building or block again. We also heartily endorse the proposal from Washington Place Equities and HDC Mid-Atlantic. It is by far the best thing that could happen to our neighborhood. Thank you, John. And I know that I have at least two more here to read into the record, so bear with me. Next, we have Tammy Rojas at 228. Hold on, let me pause. Am I going too fast? Is everybody still with me?
We're with you.
All right, great. I have Tammy Rojas at 228 West Vine Street, apartment 3. Tammy's comment reads, "My name is Tammy Rojas and I live on West Vine Street. I'm with Put People First PA and the Pennsylvania Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. I'm writing to comment about the state of healthcare in the Lancaster community. I'm very concerned about this national trend we see happening regarding hospital closures, rezoning of healthcare-related property, and the gentrification that seems to follow it, causing mass displacement and the lack of access to needed healthcare services, especially for people of color and the poor working class in general. We can't review the rezoning plans put forth by UPMC and Penn Medicine LGH as if they are two separate matters, because the choices they are both making are going to affect the access to healthcare services for our community. Not just affecting the people in Lancaster City, these choices will also send ripple effects throughout the county and state. Prior to April 1st, 2018, I was living in the Quarryville area. Due to not being able to find a new place to rent, we moved back to Lancaster City, which caused me to lose access to my family doctor once I lost my means of transportation. As a Medicaid recipient, trying to find a new primary care physician was difficult. And no matter who I called, if they did happen to take my Medicaid, I still had to wait at least 2 months before I could get an appointment. This difficulty of not being able to even get an appointment when it was convenient for me, and the lack of mass transportation to areas like Corryville, caused me to go without healthcare services for over a year. It's very clear we need more healthcare services in Lancaster, not less, and we shouldn't be given the false choice of having to decide between affordable housing and the healthcare services we need to survive, especially given the fact that we are in the middle of a global pandemic with no end in sight. There should be no rezoning at this time because we don't know yet what the future holds. There should be no rezoning at this time because we don't have an updated comprehensive plan for our community. We must wait until we get through the COVID-19 pandemic before we decide what to do with the rezoning proposals. A year and a half ago, we asked the Lancaster City government, whose side are you on? And now it's time to make that choice. Your decision on this matter will make it clear to the people if you stand on our side, the people you were elected to represent, or you are on the side of healthcare profiteer corporations. That is Ms. Rojas' comment, and I believe that is all the comments that we were sent to be entered into the record regarding the rezoning of the parcel at 250 College Avenue. Mr. Harris, is that correct to your recollection?
That's correct to my recollection, Mr. President.
Thank you. Okay, so per how I began at the top of the meeting, as Ms. Craig said, now is the time for public comment. Councilor Craig, this is your part of the store. I would ask that we prioritize as time moves on, residents or those who own property or work within Lancaster City for continued comment, and ask that all comments remain under 3 minutes, with Ms. Strazo providing timekeeping services. And I would ask, if you are making a comment and you're on the webinar as an attendee, please scroll your screen so that you can see Ms. Strazo giving you time. Other than that, Councilor Craig, your meeting.
You said it all, Council President. That's exactly where we are. We will take questions from the public following what Council President has said. We will take comments of 3 minutes.
Okay. Let's see, Steph was the first one up.
I believe I introduced myself. Stephanie Bradford, 917 Columbia Avenue, Lancaster, PA, also known as the Clock Towers. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate the presentation. You managed to answer a number of questions I have. This one is for the committee. If this parcel or these adjacent parcels are rezoned, does it affect any other zoning in the area? So for instance, could I suddenly find that I'm in a condominium in the Clock Towers and we have a dance club / vape cafe on the first floor?
Can we get somebody to answer that? I think maybe Chris?
Sure. Thank you, Councilor Craig. Happy to jump in. The short answer is no, there would not be any impact to other parcels. The zoning that is being considered tonight and over the next couple meetings through council is just for 250 College Avenue, which is a hospital site.
Okay. And piggybacking on, but with the rezoning question, does the rezoning prohibit a medical clinic, not a hospital, not a full-on, stage 3 trauma center, but because it's going to be mixed use, would it be possible to have a medical clinic similar to the, no, but they don't take anybody's insurance, but they exist, the medical clinics that are like out on Lidditz Pike and things like that?
You mean like an urgent care?
Yeah, a self-standing urgent care.
Okay.
Is that prohibited by this rezoning?
I don't think so, but I think we need somebody else to answer that.
I believe Councillor Craig that the existing UPMC urgent care will also remain. So I
The
think
one
with
across the street.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that was it on zoning. I'm moving quickly, not to be rude, but because I have 3 minutes. Amber, do I have 3 minutes still? I have 2, right? Traffic.
You're muted, Amber. You have
Sorry,
one.
1 minute left.
Okay, I'm just gonna bang the questions out then. Have there been any traffic studies? Is this gonna be bike friendly? How are we doing on public transportation? That was question number 2. Question number 3. In the clock towers, 30% of our units are unoccupied. They are ghost homes. So we have these needs in Lancaster County, what people buy here as a second home. Doesn't help a lot the city or even our board. Number 4, for the presenters, do you happen to know what percentage housing is minority owned of all of your projects and properties? You're in both Lidditz and Baltimore, so that would be kind of an interesting number to have. And number 5 was, oh, the Wheatland thing. I can look on your maps and figure out what your first step is on Wheatland Avenue. That's my backyard, so I'd like to know what exactly that is.
Thank you, Amber. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for your questions. Yvonne, if Yvonne is still on here, or not Yvonne, Dana or Dominic, I'm sorry. Could you
I think one
address
that
bike
probably,
study and traffic study?
sure. Well, I'm sure, I mean, we haven't talked to Department of Transportation. I'm sure at some point we'll have a conversation. I think, given past experience, I got to think that there'd be less trips generated by the proposed use than there were on the previous use. But obviously that would be something to look into, to confirm, and we would work with the relevant agencies on that. I think walkability is a huge asset. And I think that is, for the types of folks that I think will populate the entire project, they're going to really value the location and the fact that they can get to a lot of places without a car. And there was a question about bike friendliness. That's something that, we see more and more and more of in all of our, sort of center city projects. Early planning on our side is, we would look to accommodate that as much as possible. Bike rooms, bike repair. Again, I think people who are going to want to live in this location, whether it's market rate or affordable, are going to be attracted to the fact that to the density, to the walkability, and I think it's going to be a huge asset.
Thank you, Dominic. And there was a question about the percentage of ethnic.
Yeah, I heard that.
All of it.
We only have residents. It's not something, we're you don't, FHA rules don't allow that kind of tracking. I mean, I can just say, most of our work is in Baltimore. It's a majority minority city, and we have a lot of units.
Okay. Amber, do we have anybody else on the line?
Yes, we have a couple. The next one is Dr. Kolari. Let me add him in.
Dr. Kolari?
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead.
My name is Antonio Kolari, and by the way, I work in the city. I pay the service tax, I pay fines, I pay water bills, and I have been kind of involved in city community development for a long time. So I am here supporting the concerns that some people have raised, especially Put People First and the Lancaster Health Rights Committee and the Poor People's Campaign about this project. I'm going to use as a standard for thinking about it, the standard of affordability, which is the standard that the speaker from Washington Place Equity himself referred to, using the mayor's words, as the value of this project for the community. And I must say that from what I have seen, especially since this has been in the works for a long time and there has been a lot of community input, I have seen nothing to reassure me that this in fact will work towards affordability. Even if we take into account the fact that there is a partnership with HDC. Let me give you an example of how there hasn't been enough thinking here to make the promise of affordability real. The question of mixed use by itself just means that there's going to be office space, retail space, commercial, as well as residential. But it doesn't speak to the character of the type of retail activities or commercial activities or office activities that are going to be in these spaces. And as we know, the types of such spaces is very crucial to how people feel in a neighborhood. So this to me looks like the affordability. The people who are going to be lower income people are going to be going in there and not really have access to the type of stores that will make them feel like this is their neighborhood. There has not been any discussion about the economics of the types of commercial and retail space that would satisfy the needs of lower income people. So I don't really think that this is going to go there. I think that this is just a promise, which is more likely to be an empty promise than a real promise. It doesn't fit the recommendations of the planning committee for the developments in here to have the shape and character of a neighborhood. So I don't think that there has been enough thinking here. And I think that council should not pass this on and go back to square until there is more thinking with more serious community input. Sorry, I took a little bit longer. I had more stuff, but I'll have to quit.
Thank you, Dr. Kalai. Amber, do we have any other callers?
Yes, next is Ryan G. Please state your name and address.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Ryan Gephardt. I am from the 500 block of North Lime Street. So I think in terms of this project and how housing in general gets developed in the cities across the United States, we are see that the main focus, the main selling point of this project has been the affordable housing aspect of the approximately 30 or 33% of units are supposed to be affordable housing. Of course, in the kind of brand new context that this project has been put into, given the global pandemic and the massive economic repercussions of the system as it's kind of coming apart at the seams, we're seeing a number of incredibly worrying figures in the news that's maybe not as reported as other ones. Like, well, the simple fact that 50 million people have lost their jobs in a wave of unemployment across the country. Over 44 million of them have applied for unemployment benefits. We see 30% of home buyers have missed their June housing payments, and at least 20 million tenants across the United States could not pay their rent. And a study, in an article by CNBC, is showing how the eviction crisis has been impacting each state. 40% of renters in Pennsylvania missed a renting payment in at least the last month or the last 3 months that put them at risk of eviction, given the federal ban on evictions has recently expired on July 25th. Now we are seeing an absolutely unprecedented, we are set to see an unprecedented wave of evictions, of need for low-income housing, and we need the necessity for affordable housing. But in this project, we hear these promises about affordable housing, 30%. So obviously not the majority of the project, a minority of the project going towards affordable housing. and of course the financial strains that it places on a company whose job is to come in as a contractor, ordering a contractor to create these spaces in order to make, you know, a sufficient amount of financial support out of the project in order to provide the extremely basic necessity, which is housing. So I would, I suppose I'd like to ask, what is the city council's ability to enforce the need for this affordable housing? How do you even make sure that they even hit the mark of 30% affordable housing? And how can we actually, as citizens, push this project to provide even more of a percentage of affordable housing, given we are seeing an unprecedented impact on the people of this country? And so, yeah, that's all my time. So I'd like to, if you could address those concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Council President, can you address that?
I can. Ryan, I hope Ryan's still on the call. He's, yeah, okay, I can see Ryan's still on the call. Hey, Ryan, that's incredibly important. So let me contextualize what you've said right there. So what's incredibly telling, and I've said this previously, is how significant to many of us in government building the relatively paltry number of 120 units of affordable housing is, and that's because it hasn't happened in this community to that volume in years. And what we're trying to do is pull in 120 units of affordable housing here, or, you know, in as much affordable housing as can be included in every other project. And the truth is, while 30% is far and away the best percentage we've seen from a project in front of us in a long time, and I can say that as somebody who was previously a spectator on city council, the need, as you correctly identify, is much larger. So council's capacity to enforce the affordable housing is less so in this project really than council's capacity to advocate to the state and to other entities to ensure that we do get the funding necessary to provide more affordable housing in this project. I will say that the city has invested heavily in the eviction prevention network, and my hope is that we're going to continue to invest more and more in affirmatively furthering fair housing as we move forward. But I think our best bet in this version of the proposal that we have right now is really to advocate to the state to ensure that we get more of that funding, because we don't exist in a legislative or political environment in which affordable housing is a guarantee. And that's a real poverty of the political system. That being said, I do have a lot of faith in Dana and in HDC to deliver that. But my hope, Ryan, is that we'll be able to, not just here, but in every project we see forward, evaluate and engage for affordable housing. And if you'd like to do me personally a favor, one of the things that we need, and I don't say this to shirk the ongoing responsibility that we have to provide it, is that we also need your support in coming together to advocate to the county and demand that they deliver more of those funds for affordable housing, not just within the city limits, but throughout the county, because funds come from the federal government largely for that sort of thing. They go to and are distributed through the county. So if you look at CARES Act funding or the size of emergency community development block grant funding, that's where a lot of that money is, and that's true regardless of this project. And so that's the position that we're in. And I would actually really love for Dana to talk about what that environment looks like. Could we get more affordable housing out of this project? What can we do to ensure that we get affordable housing out of this project if we do in fact rezone it? How can we advocate to the state, to PHFA? Because I think that, and I think this is the subtext of what you were saying, Ryan, I don't want to presume, but I think that for a lot of community members, buy-in looks a lot like knowing what they can do to maximize affordable housing here so that we actually get what we know that we need, and being able to advocate for that in other projects. Sorry for taking up so much time, Councilor Craig.
Not a problem, Council President. Thank you so much for addressing that. Ryan, I hope that answered your question sufficiently.
Oh, Councilor Craig, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Ryan, if you would, just in the interest of time, this is actually a subject which requires a lot of deep diving, and I don't want to eat up somebody else's comments, like comment time. So I would love to talk to you and really anybody else more about the issue of affordable housing in the city. If you email our clerk at bharris@cityoflancasterpa.com, he'll ensure that I have your email, and I'll commit to reaching back out to you so we can discuss this further. Thanks. Sorry about that.
Perfect. Perfect. Amber, do we have anybody else waiting to?
Yep, we have 5 more. Next is Tim. All right, Tim, go ahead.
Hey, hi guys. Long time no see. Tim Stuldrer, 800 block of, hi Zavi. 800 block of George Street. 2 questions for the developers, somewhat related. In the presentation, you indicated that there's different parts that have different funding structures. I'm wondering, when all is said and done, will there be one unified ownership structure, one unified partnership, or will different parts of the project be under different ownership and management? And on a similarly, given that different parts of the project have different funding structures, is it possible that you'll end up doing different parts of the project at different times, maybe delay this part until you get that funding in place? Or is the intent to do it all in one go?
So in terms, I'll take the affordable housing piece of that, and the affordable housing phases, phase 1 and 2 are structured and would not involve a partnership directly with Washington Place Equities, as their unique financing mechanisms through the low income housing tax credit program. So we would move phase 1 through first, which is the Wheatland and College Avenue sites, and work on the financial packaging of that, submitting in 2021. And then the year after, because we can't submit 2 projects at once because they would compete against each other, we would submit for phase 2 in 2022. And those would be created as limited partnerships under the low income housing tax credit regulations, of which HDC would be a partner of, and the equity investor would be the other partner.
For us, we have basically 3 different uses on the balance of the site. On the market rate multifamily, we would retain. Oh, is that for me, Amber?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. We would retain ownership. We've got an affiliated management company. We would be there for the long term. We would raise our own equity and handle the financing on that. For the for sale housing and for the office, we're looking at different structures for those pieces, open to different scenarios. I think we take the responsibility as kind of like a master developer pretty seriously, and so everything we do is going to fall under some restrictions coming from, if nothing else, the Department of Interior relative to our tax credits. And so, I think there's going to be sort of a continuity of management and oversight throughout the different pieces, no matter what structure we end up with for the office and for sale.
Yeah, and my again, could you speak to doing different bits and pieces of the project at different times? I'm thinking, if it can be all be done in one go, then you're looking at 1.5 years. But if part of it is delayed, that could presumably stretch out the construction schedule.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, I think it's really going to be a function of identifying partners, identifying financing structures that can work. And, I think the benefit on the site is that there's plenty of room to do things concurrently or even simultaneously. And so, it would be our hope to try and, bring as much to occupancy at the same time as we could. No one wants to live next to a construction site, and that really just causes longer term problems. And so if we can compress that time frame, we want to think about that however we can.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay. Adding in Nick SH.
Hi, everyone. Nick Silveri, Hiller, East Lemon Street. I'm a member and activist with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. Only days after UPMC announced that they would remove a hospital from Lancaster City, Randy Patterson, the city's Director of Economic Development and Neighborhood Revitalization at the time, stated to LNP, the city's preference, this is a quote, the city's preference would clearly be that UPMC demolish the structures and provide a blank canvas for future development. This was brought up at following city council members after the closure announcement. And I remind you about it today because at the time we were told that city council and administration did not have a plan and that they would listen to the community. This narrative continued until the start of this year, but now we see about that what we spoke about then has come true now, that the loss of the hospital will be used to further gentrification. This proposal's intention is to further profits for the wealthy, and in order to quell progressive people's resistance to the proposal, it provides crumbs to the working class and poor. Housing is a human right. The need for housing is not up for debate. And what is up for debate is the question of how these needs are met, and does this actually solve the problem or only make it worse? It was mentioned actually earlier today in this meeting that this was by far one of the better proposals that was given to City Council. And it made me think of a Malcolm X metaphor. Of course, he's talking about something different in this metaphor, but I think the metaphor works where he says, if you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6, that's not progress. If you pull it out all the way, that's still not progress. Progress is healing the wound that the blow made. In the middle of a pandemic and economic crisis, it concerns me, to say the least, that the essential human rights to housing and healthcare are up to the mercy of a few, and who will hold them accountable. I ask that you vote against the rezoning of St. Joe's Hospital and fight for political and social and economic change that works for the people and the needs against the rule of profit. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Put People First PA. Okay.
What is the name on that, Amber?
I'm not sure. It said Put People First PA.
Okay.
Sir, you're muted.
Sorry about that. My name is Matthew Rosing. I'm the co-coordinator of the Lancaster Healthcare Rights Committee with Put People First PA. We're part of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. We come to you with great concerns for the future of our community. The rezoning of St. Joseph Hospital property is absolutely unthinkable at this point. We are in the middle of a global pandemic with no end in sight. There's been a nationwide spike in cases since the false choice of reopening. We have no idea where we will be in 3 to 6 months from now. We don't even have an up-to-date comprehensive plan for the city. We're on the brink of a possible disaster, and UPMC is looking to make a buck. I understand that there is a component of affordable housing added to this project, which we agree is much needed in this city. But addressing the issue of affordable housing without addressing the inadequate access to healthcare services in our community is once again a false choice narrative. The issues of housing, healthcare, poverty, racism, and others are all interconnected. We can't address one without the other due to how they are closely intertwined with the economic system we live in. We also shouldn't be giving up on one needed service for another. Doing that will not make our families safe and secure. We cannot discuss rezoning at this time. We can come back and visit this after the fall/winter season when we will have a better idea of how the pandemic will play out. We were told by an insider that the Army Corps of Engineers said that they could have the property of St. Joe's up and running within about a week. So it is still usable for the pandemic. UPMC reopened the York Hospital that was closed as a COVID-19 testing site, but not Lancaster. They wanted to make this real estate deal. This is why they were a big player in working with our elected officials across the state to push the reopen economy narrative. We need to put the people before this corporation, human rights before corporate greed. I'm tired of seeing my class struggle and be in need of basic necessities in life. We stand at a point where the choice is to serve humanity or serve corporate greed. Which side are you on? Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Matthew. Is there anybody else on the call, Amber?
Yes, Jennifer Frank.
Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Jennifer Frank. I'm a member of Put People First PA and the Poor People's Campaign, a lifetime resident of Lancaster. I'm a social worker, and so the needs of the people are always a really big concern for me. I'm on Landis Avenue. Right now, we are in a time when people are highly preoccupied with staying alive. Parents are worried about sending their kids back to school. I, for one, am on 2 different public meetings right now at the same time, literally listening to 2 things. There are so many unknowns. It seems that something as important as this rezoning should be done at a time when people aren't looking in the other direction. The fact that this project and others like it are being pushed through with such urgency really gives me pause. Why the rush? Is it specifically because no one is looking right now? My deeper concern is that I'm not seeing exactly how this proposal will meet the real and the felt needs of the community. For example, who will be able to access the affordable housing units? I know that sometimes eligibility criteria like credit issues, for example, sometimes prohibit the most needy from accessing these types of units. I am very familiar with HDC and I know the good work that they do in the community. However, I'm very unfamiliar with them partnering up with an out-of-state for-profit developer like Washington Place Equities. I'm not familiar with them. It seems counter to my understanding of really HDC's mission. With all due respect, how do we know that Washington Place Equities isn't just another gentrification machine? We've heard about aspects of the HDC proposal, but I'm unfamiliar with the proposal being put forth by Washington Place Equities. Everything I'm hearing is still very vague and it looks like serious gentrification. We don't need more gentrification in Lancaster. It feels to me like HDC and HDC's name and image, which is popular, familiar, and successful in Lancaster, is being used to get this thing through. We don't know enough about Washington Place Equities and what they really plan to do on this site. The last thing that Lancaster needs is another high-end property that caters to the rich when poverty rates are escalating. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay, next is CD Knoll.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name is David Knoll. I'm a resident of the 800 block of West Walnut Street. And I was present at one of the earlier planning committees and spoke. And my comments today are focused on just 2 issues. Number one, the property as it stands has been attempted by 3 different healthcare systems to provide an economically successful healthcare delivery system to the city. And none of those 3 systems have been able to do it in a sustained fashion, hence we're having this discussion. So the likelihood of this being actually used in this very specific zoning that it is now for a highly specialized purpose is in my way of thinking, very unlikely in the future. Secondly, while I'm very sympathetic with the need for affordable housing, and as a neighbor to this property, I completely endorse that idea and would welcome the project as it's being presented. I think the whole point of the meeting is to determine whether or not we should rezone this property. So any discussion about even the potential of affordable housing on this site without rezoning it first, to me is kind of counterproductive, because you can't really put affordable housing on a site that's zoned for specific hospital use only. So I thoroughly support the recommendation, and I'm encouraged by the work the city has done to bring together HDC and this developer to see something that may be, in fact, a very sustainable project over the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
All right, we have one more, Nathan Warren.
Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, my name's Nathan Warren. I'm a member of the Lancaster Healthcare Rights Committee of Put People First PA. Do not rezone at this time. I don't know morally how this could go through. 30% affordable housing is a Band-Aid, unrealistic, and an insult when it's mixed in with the other goals that Washington Place Equities has in mind right now. Mass eviction and being barred from accessing healthcare are nationwide humongous realities, and that is in our community as well. If this goes through, Lancaster would go even deeper into these crises. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Are there any other callers, Amber?
Nope, that's it.
Thank you. Okay, having heard from the public, I'll go back around to see if there's any questions for the committee. If not, I will move on. Hearing nothing, I will will entertain a motion to move this to full council on the 11th.
I'll motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Council President, that concludes community development.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Councilor Craig. Before you disappear, thank you to Dana and Dominic, and I'm sorry, there's another gentleman. Is it
Claude?
Claude, thank you. And Claude for being on the call and making the presentation, and in engaging with feedback from residents. That's specifically what we ask for. Taking a moment, as this process moves into the next meeting, I want to let everybody know that a possibility that had been discussed is that, given the most recent meeting of the most recent full meeting of council, as you know, the rezoning of the former YMCA site, the former YMCA site was tabled to August 25th. And given the schedule in which we take things here, this would ostensibly be read into the record on August 11th, and then the public hearing and consideration would be had on August 25th. So we don't want to exhaust anybody on the staff side or on the community side. So an idea that we're considering, and with council's consent, which is what I'm about to ask for here, we'll have a special meeting the evening of August 27th at 6 p.m. For the public hearing and then possible vote on this particular change to the zoning ordinance, so that we're not doubling up on people on the same evening. So I'm now, council, do I have your consent to call such a meeting?
Yes, Mr. President.
None.
Counselor Garcia Molina and Soto?
Yes.
Okay. We don't have Counselor Diaz, unfortunately, but I think that is the most effective solution that allows everybody to engage without being fatigued out of paying attention or fatigued out of making a crucial public comment that it could be, in fact, that council needs very much to hear.
And Council President, just to jump in for a moment, point of process, and I think you already noted this in your statement. I think it was implicit in there, but I just wanted to be clear that we have an advertisement requirement for the official hearing for the zoning amendment. And essentially, we need some lead time in order to do that. So the August 11th meeting, as you said, would be a first reading before council, and then the official hearing would be on that August 27th date if you indeed settle on that date. I just wanted to let you know that we can't have the hearing as early as the 11th because of the advertisement requirements, but it seems like it's lining up. It's lining up in a way that works.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Delfs. And yes, that's right. We do have an advertisement for these things, especially an advertising requirement, which must be met over and above the regularly scheduled second council meeting. So I'm letting you all know now, and then we will also read that next meeting date into the record at the August 11th meeting. So you'll hear the same thing again on August 11th about the special meeting that we will be holding on the 27th. And that will be a special meeting of full council as opposed to the Community Planning Committee, just so that everybody is aware. Okay, that brings us to the end of the committee agenda. Mr. Harris, do we have your clerk's report in writing?
Yes, Mr. President, you do.
Okay. Would you be aggrieved if, given the hour, I simply asked council to read it on their own time?
I would not, Mr. President.
All right. With that, again, my thanks to all involved. If you have follow-ups, please email them to bharris@cityoflancaster, PA, and he'll make sure that they get to me. Of course, this is a great opportunity to mention that literally we would not be able to function at all without Mr. Harris, and we're extremely grateful for him. But with that, I will hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned, everybody. Have a good evening.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.